Dozens of drones hit Moscow and Moscow region. Trump agrees to Ukraine ceasefire along current front line, and how Putin shifts tactics in war against Ukraine. The latest news next. Moscow was unexpectedly attacked by unidentified drones. Russian authorities traditionally reassured the public that everything had been shut down. Meanwhile, explosions were heard across the city, according to Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation and Russian Media. Kovalenko briefly wrote that Moscow was under drone attack, but did not provide further details. Russian media, however, published numerous photos and videos from the capital. Loud explosions were reported and plumes of smoke were rising in parts of the city. Panic spread among Moscow residents through local chat groups. Russian channels claimed that a Ukrainian drone allegedly hit a high-rise building. However, this appears more likely to be the result of Russia's own air defense systems, which has a history of striking its own buildings. Meanwhile, Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin insisted Russia's air defenses were successfully repelling the drone attacks. He did not comment on the visible smoke rising in the city. Photos have already circulated online showing a Russian equivalent of Ukrainian fire groups. Russian soldiers in a pickup truck equipped with a machine gun were seen directly opposite the Kremlin. Earlier on October 26, explosions were reported in the Moscow region near an airfield hosting Russian strategic aviation. The Shaykovka Air Base, also home to strategic aviation, and Kaluga Airport in the Kaluga region were reportedly under attack. Ukrainian forces also struck the Belgorod Dam on October 26. The attack caused the dam to start leaking water. This left Russian forces near Vovchansk cut off from the main body of their army. There is a deep sense of justice in what's happening. For years, Russia exported war, fear, and destruction to its neighbors, believing that violence would never cross its own borders. Now, the same echoes of chaos are being heard in Moscow, the city that once imagined itself untouchable. This isn't coincidence or fate, it's consequence. When a nation builds its power on lies, terror, and domination, sooner or later that foundation collapses inward. The panic in the Russian capital today is the mirror of the panic they caused in countless Ukrainian towns. It's not revenge, it's reality catching up. Justice doesn't always arrive in courtrooms. Sometimes it comes in the form of reckoning, silent, unexpected, and undeniable. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in an interview with Axios that Russian dictator Vladimir Putin was unlikely to accept the peace plan proposed by the coalition of the willing. About background, last week UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced that the coalition of the willing had developed a peace plan for Ukraine by the end of 2025.
We came together around a clear plan for the rest of this year. First, we will act to take Russian oil and gas off the global market. I am urging others to take these steps too, to go further to reduce their dependencies.
At the time, Zelensky said that to defeat Putin and end the war in Ukraine, the United States and the coalition of the willing must act together. What Zelensky said: according to Zelensky, the plan should be brief and not overloaded with details. Some quick points, like a plan for a ceasefire. We decided we will work on it in the next week or 10 days, he said. He stressed, however, that he is skeptical that Putin would agree to any peace plan. President Zelensky's skepticism is entirely justified. Any peace plan built on trust with the Kremlin risks collapsing under the weight of Russia's own deceit. Putin has repeatedly used the language of peace as a weapon, not to end wars, but to pause them until he can start again. The coalition of the willing is taking an important step by uniting around a clear timeline and decisive economic measures like cutting off Russian oil and gas. But real peace will require more than documents or deadlines. It will require breaking Moscow's illusion that it can dictate the terms of stability while waging a war of annihilation. Zelensky's insistence on keeping the plan simple is pragmatic. Clarity leaves no room for manipulation. Yet his doubt underscores a hard truth. You can't negotiate peace with someone who profits from war. Until the Kremlin feels true strategic and economic pressure, any plan risks becoming just another diplomatic pause in a conflict Russia never intended to end. US President Donald Trump agreed that the only acceptable compromise for Ukraine is a halt to hostilities along the current front line, President Volodymyr Zelensky told TSN TV host Olha Bilan when asked whether Trump's position had shifted and whether the US president understood that Ukraine cannot cede its territory. Zelensky said Trump has so far agreed with Ukrainians' vision of a compromise.
Trump indeed agreed that the Ukrainian compromise is a ceasefire along the front line.
Zelensky also noted that Trump did not impose sanctions on Russia without reason. The US president's stance was influenced not only by a desire to resolve the war in Ukraine, but also by Kremlin actions, including the strike on a kindergarten in Kharkiv, Putin's inability to achieve gains on the front, and destructive statements coming from Moscow.
America's sanctions strike looks even more catastrophic after Europe's 19th package of sanctions.
However, despite the sanctions, Trump appears to still leave a negotiation window open for Putin. The Russian dictator still has a chance to agree to peace talks. Russian claims about allegedly encircling Ukrainian troops near Kupiansk and Pokrovsk are completely false, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in a phone conversation with TSN Week TV host Olha Bilan. Earlier, Russian generals told Vladimir Putin that their forces had allegedly surrounded up to 5,000 Ukrainian soldiers in Pokrovsk and Kupiansk. That claim is untrue. It's a complete lie, and not the first one, Zelensky said. He explained that such statements are meant to provoke panic. This time, however, the disinformation appears aimed at the United States to create the illusion that Russia is gaining ground on the battlefield. Zelensky said he has up-to-date information from the General Staff and from Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Alexander Syrsky. According to him, Russian activity near Kupiansk and Pokrovsk this week was 1.5 to 2 times lower than in previous periods. He added that Ukrainian forces are in control of the situation and that such reports are no more than Kremlin disinformation maneuvers. Russia is intensifying strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, seeking to cut power to industrial regions and sow chaos among the population, according to The Economist. Russian forces have sharply increased the number of strikes on Ukrainians' energy facilities, particularly in Sumy, Chernihiv and Kharkiv regions. Following recent attacks, some areas were left without electricity for several days. According to analysts, Russia's tactics have changed. The strikes are now more precise and systematic. Whereas missiles were previously launched randomly, the Russian military now concentrates waves of coordinated attacks on specific regions using next-generation drones. But Ukrainians' response: Ukraine has strengthened its air defense systems and is developing electronic warfare capabilities. New interceptor drones are being designed to protect critical infrastructure, a major technological step in countering persistent aerial threats. Next-generation drones. The report notes that Russia is actively deploying upgraded Shahed-type drones with speeds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour and improved resistance to jamming systems. These new models can dive nearly vertically, mimicking missile-like trajectories. While a year ago a night attack of 150 drones was considered large-scale, Ukraine now frequently repels up to 700 drones in a single wave. Despite improved defenses, the scale of such assaults makes full interception extremely difficult. Strikes on key substations. Roughly 60% of Ukrainians' electricity is generated by nuclear power plants, with the rest coming from hydro and thermal sources. Russia is targeting all components, damaging power stations and disrupting distribution networks. In recent weeks, Russian strikes have destroyed several thermal facilities and damaged up to half of Ukraine's gas production, undermining grid stability. The main focus remains on eastern and northern regions. Journalists report that Russia's goal is to divide Ukrainian energy system, cutting off the industrial east from the productive west by severing transmission line a strategy aimed at gradually paralyzing power flows between regions. Defense and recovery. Ukrainian's power grid relies on about 90 key substations where voltage is converted for regional networks, and Russia is systematically targeting these nodes to expose weak points. Despite the destruction, Ukraine retains equipment reserves and is forming new units combining air defense and drones to protect energy infrastructure. The immediate priority is to slow the rate of damage and accelerate repairs. That's all for today. Thanks for watching this video. Support Ukraine, like and subscribe.